Y'all, this is take 7. 7 is my favorite number, so let's just hope that this is, 7 is a sacred number, it's the Lord's number, so let's hope this take is gonna be blessed and that I can be done, because I'm so tired, y'all. This is like, I'm literally like, I'm about to just turn this light off and call it a night, because, ooh-wee, chalet. Okay, y'all, so in today's video, I'm gonna be talking about my favorite books from the year 2019. I read more books in 2019 than I've ever read in my entire life. And I got to discover a lot of really awesome stories and discover some really awesome authors that are now some of my favorites. So we're gonna go ahead and start off with the most recent finished book. I technically finished this year, but I started it in 2019. So I'm accounted for 2019. So I don't know if you can see this. It's on my phone. It's an Audible book. If you can't see it, whatever. You can look it up on Google. It's Carry On by Rainbow. I think it's Rawell. Either Rowell or Rawell. I called her Roswell in the last take, which I'm glad I'm not putting that in there. But now that I've said it, now she's gonna know I said it. So I'm sorry, ma'am. So Rainbow Rawell. We'll call her Rawell. Rainbow is a really, really good author. I first discovered this particular book when I was in Barnes & Noble, and I saw Wayward Son. I fell in love with the cover. I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but whoever did the illustration for the cover of Wayward Son, the flavor. So I was like, I want to read this, and then I heard a record scratch, and I realized there was a book before it, and I was like, oh, this is like a series. Oh, okay. I should probably read the first book in the series before I read the sequel. So I read Carry On, fell in love with it, and I just ordered Wayward Son. It will be here. Is it midnight? It's not midnight yet, so we will be here on Monday. So I'm very excited for that. It's gonna be very, very great. So that is Carry On. It's actually read by Ewan Morton, who I just discovered like 30 minutes ago is a Tony nominee. He was in Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and he played King George in Hamilton on Broadway. And I'm like, all this time, I've been listening to a Tony-nominated actor and didn't even know. Mind blown. The second book was the first book I ever read on my Kindle. I got this about, I should do a Kindle review. I got this, I think, in like September, so it's a couple of months ago. In the last take, I fooled around for like a good 5 minutes trying to find the cover, because for some reason it's so difficult for me to find the cover of books on Kindle. I don't know if you can see this. I'm gonna go back and forth so it can eventually be in focus. But this is Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda, also known as Love, Simon. I fell in love with the film first, which you can see right here. Fell in love with the film first, and then said, I have to read the book. I did the same thing with Dan Brown's Angels and Demons. I watched the movie and said, listen, I have to read this book, and just fell even more in love with the story. But I read the book. I have not read a young adult novel like that since. Let me read the first sentence to you. One thing that I've learned as an author is that you have to capture the reader in the first line. Like, that is your chance to really pull them into the story. That first line is one of the most important, if not the most important thing in the entire book. So it's chapter 1. It's a weirdly subtle conversation. I almost don't notice I'm being blackmailed. Come on. Like, literally, I read that and I was like, Becky, listen. The flavor. I was like, I have to read this. Like, I got the sample first on the Kindle, and the minute I read that, I went straight to the Kindle store, and I was like, boop, purchased. Because, like, listen, why would you not want to read the rest? So I love Simon. I love Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. So thank you so much. I think her name is Becky Albertalli. Yes, Becky Albertalli. There you go. Let me look at my time. Okay, I'm doing good on time. Alrighty, the next book is a young adult novel. It's from the Jimmy Patterson collection. I think this is the first like young adult novel that James Patterson has wrote. it's not like your teenage like young adult novel. Like I could tell from like when I looked at the first page. This isn't the first page, but this is just an example of the spacing. I was like, oh, it's that type of young adult. It's like young adult. Okay. But yeah, I read it. It's really good. I think for if you have a little like geeky, you know, future detective, future, you know, police officer, you know, running around the house, perfect gift for him. It's based on Alex Cross's son. Alex Cross, if you read James Patterson and Alex Cross books, this is his son's adventure into being a young detective. Very cute book, very good book. Yeah, I'd say, you know, it's very young adult. I'd say like maybe if your kid is like really reading at like in 5th grade, I would say like late elementary, early to middle, junior high-ish type book. But it is good. It's very well written, but it's very young. So, you know, I love young adult novels because I'm a young adult. Yeah, I definitely say like it is very young. So just heads up, and I think your kids will really enjoy it. I'm gonna give this to a kid because I would love for them to. I love spreading the joy and cheer of books and reading and literacy. The next book is actually a graphic novel that I discovered at Barnes & Noble and said, wow, this is expensive. I'm gonna get this on Amazon. And I went home, ordered it, and fell in love with it. Very cute little love story. It's called Bloom. It is by Kevin Panetta and Savannah Ganuche, I believe. But yeah, this is sorry if I butchered your name, ma'am. I am so sorry. This is look at the illustrations. The flavor, it is so good. This is such a cute little love story. I love it. So if you ever get a chance, please order this book and read it. It is great. The next one is another cute little, it's a comic book. This is actually a paperback collection of a couple of comic books. So this is the Backstagers. I actually discovered this when I was in college. When I was working on Tyrone, I was looking for inspirations for the musical. My hip hop comic book musical, The Fly and Incredibly Dope Adventures of Tyrone Jenkins, which I'm gonna insert a picture here from the show. Iconic. But I was looking for some inspiration. You know, I was looking for comic books that would sort of help me write, help me during the writing process, and also help me, you know, work on the design of the show. So the look of the show, the set and lighting and everything. And I was like, what's better than a comic book about theater geeks? Oh my God. It's literally about a ragtag group of theater techies at a high school theater program, and it is so cute. The illustration is so good. It is so funny. Like I have this version, and I have a Kindle version of one of the other volumes, and I will just be in bed just cackling. It is so funny. It is so good. So this is very neat. Definitely check this out at your local. Go support your local comic book and graphic novel stores. But also you can get it on Amazon, and you can also get it on the Kindle Paperwhite. Also, just a heads up, I just mentioned Kindle, and I also mentioned Audible, which are both Amazon things. Amazon, listen, I know I don't have, you know, Shane Dawson, you know, freaking James Charles, you know, Team 10, I don't know if that's still a thing. I don't have the Paul Brothers type viewership, but if you would like to sponsor me, I really appreciate it, because I love books and I love reading, and I also love, I don't want to say money because that sounds very harsh. I love getting a check. I love getting a check that I work for, but I love getting a check. So if y'all love me too. And the last book, how am I doing on time? Okay, I'm doing good. The last book is Dan Brown's Inferno. For anyone that knows me, you know I am a diehard Dan Brown fan. I started reading Dan Brown when I think I was in middle school. And the first book I ever read was The Lost Symbol because I have an obsession with Freemasonry. And when I walked into Kroger and saw that book on the bookstand, I was like, Mom, I want this one. And I've fallen in love with all of his books. I've read all of his books thus far. Well, I'm about to start reading Origin, which is his most recent book. But his books are amazing. I love them. Very similar sort of story. Robert Langdon teams up with a gorgeous woman in some European country, and they run around trying to save the world. But it's good. The books are good though. They're good. They keep you pulled in, and it uses history as the landscape, which is really awesome. So ancient symbols and secret societies, and you know, like it's crazy. I love Dan Brown books. I love all of his Robert Langdon books. So if you ever get the opportunity, read them. But I read Inferno. I've actually been reading this for a couple of years because funny story. I'm gonna try to keep it short. When I was in college, I sort of lost my love for reading books, at least like novels, because I had to read so many books for school. The only like fun stories I got to really read it that I felt like reading were like plays and novels I had to read for, you know, my classes. And I tried doing audiobooks, but I didn't really start enjoying audiobooks until I graduated from college. I got an audiobook of this, but I didn't like it. Not that the reader wasn't great, but I just love reading Dan Brown in my head, and I just love the feel of the Dan Brown paperbacks, the little ones. Like, oh, I love it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait, and I waited until after I graduated. But I've read this book in New York City. I've read it in Punta Cana. I've read it just about everywhere. You can see it's been torn apart, but that's what I love about this book. I love the fact that it's torn apart because it shows sort of, you know, my life journey. Like, this book has followed me for almost a big chunk of my young adult life. And it has been a story that's sort of been interwoven into my life story. And it's really sort of, you know, when I've been depressed or I've gone through, you know, some tough times, I've had this book to kind of, you know, sit back and read to sort of give me an escape. So thank you, Dan Brown. And thank you to all of the amazing authors that write books. Books are powerful, y'all. I don't want to preach to y'all, but like, books are powerful. If you have a young kid in your life, you know, toys are great, you know, electric scooters are cute or whatever, but buy them a book. You know, there's nothing like the power of literacy and the power of reading in a young person's life. And my mom encouraged that in me when I was a kid. She could have looked at that book and said, oh, you ain't reading that. But she did. She encouraged it, and she bought me that book. And she has bought me a bunch of Dan Brown books. Most of the Dan Brown books I've read in my life, she bought them for me because she just loves my obsession with Dan Brown. I literally named my dog I named my dog Langdon. You know, like, I'm obsessed with this book. So definitely give a child the gift of a book. Give the child the gift of literacy. It is very important. Reading knowledge is power, and a big chunk of knowledge comes from books. So not to, you know, preach too much, but there was a time when young African American people in general were not allowed to read. And you know, to sort of suppress our ability to realize that we were more powerful and more beautiful than we were told that we were. We were fed the knowledge instead of being able to discover it for ourselves. So to be a part of a generation that's ancestors weren't given the opportunity to read, I celebrate reading and I celebrate literacy. So especially if you're a young African American kid, pick up a book, because just think about it. Just a couple of generations ago, your ancestors were not allowed that right. So I'm using it to my ability. I'm learning everything that my ancestors could not learn, and I am the living embodiment of what they dreamt of. I am the dream of my ancestors. Me sitting here picking up this book and reading this complicated big old book is powerful because my ancestors couldn't do that. So thank you to my ancestors. Thank you to Dan Brown for writing really great books. And thank you to all of these authors, these very diverse authors, for writing really, really great books. I can't wait to do the same thing next year and tell you all what I read in 2020. So yeah, stay tuned. But yeah, y'all be blessed, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.